What's up YouTube, Dale here from Zephyr, and today, because you smashed that like button on the Phantom Knight profile well above 50 likes in the first 24 hours, here is a dedicated combo video, and then I will finish it off with a test hand for the deck. So I'm going to start off with the very basic one card combo that utilizes all of the new cards, so you can see how instrumental they are in building a field. So let's start off with our Doomed Solette. In doing so, because we control no monsters, we can special summon this card from the hand, and in doing that, we get to set the Phantom Knight of Umbrage Veil. Now you can set any of your Phantom Knight trap cards, but the idea is with the Veil, because we control a Phantom Knight, or if our opponent was to disrupt this and put it into the graveyard, we would still have a Phantom Knight in our graveyard, we can activate this card and summon it as a level 3 monster. What that means when you have two level 3s in Phantom Knights is you can make a rank 3 in the form of the Phantom Knights of Malevolent Scythe. Then you get to detach material from this card to special summon the Phantom Knights monster from the deck, and we're going to get the brand new Phantom Knights of Decayed Cloak, so using all of them. You can then use the Phantom Knights of Decayed Cloak to either search out a monster you want to use for your normal summon, or in this one, because we want to maintain our normal summon, we're going to search out the Phantom Knights of Silent Boots. Special summon down the Phantom Boots because we control a Phantom Knight, and then link both of these together to go into Cherubini, Ibon, Angel of the Burning Abyss. Use the Ibon Angel's effect to send the Phantom Knights of Torn Scales from deck to the graveyard. We will then be able to use the effect of the Silent Boost to add a Phantom Knights card from deck to hand, and we're going to grab our Phantom Knights Fogblade. Now the reason I choose to go for Fogblade here is if my opponent was to disrupt this line here or disrupt the Torn Scales in the graveyard, I would at least have a Fogblade that could negate or protect or line up or whatever else you need. In this scenario as well, also remember you have 4 more cards to play with that can help you extend, so if you already open up the Fogblade, you can go for Wings instead, it's entirely up to you. We'd then be able to trigger off the Phantom Knights of Torn Scale because a Phantom Knight was banished to bring this card back to the field. We will then use his own effect to discard the Phantom Knights of Fogblade here. Again, you can discard anything, but you ideally want to discard a Phantom Knight trap card, to then be able to send the Phantom Knights of Ancient Cloak from deck to the graveyard. You will then use the Phantom Knights Fogblade effect to banish this from the graveyard and bring back the Phantom Knights of Decayed Cloak. In doing so, we also have the ability to banish the Phantom Knights of Doomed Solette from the graveyard to then target up to 2 level or rank 3 dark monsters we control and increase their levels by 1. In doing so, we're going to make both of these a level 4, and then we're going to overlay both of these into the Dark Rebellion Xyz Dragon. In doing so, we'll be able to trigger the Malevolent Scythe effect that if we Xyz summon an Xyz Dragon, while this card is in our monster zone, we get to add a rank up spell from the deck to the hand, which will be the Phantom Knights rank up magic Requiem. We will then activate the Requiem on this one, targeting a Phantom Knights or an Xyz Dragon in our grave or banishment, and special summon it, but we negate its effects. And then we apply the following effects to choose a Dark Xyz monster we control and special summon from our extra deck a Phantom Knights or an Xyz Dragon Xyz monster that is 1 rank higher. So, from the banishment, we want to bring back the boots. And the reason we bring back the boots is it has a very nice graveyard effect. We will then rank up our Dark Rebellion Xyz Dragon into a Dark Requiem Xyz Dragon. If you're going second, the more aggressive option will be your Arc Rebellion, but from this point on, you will be protected from Nibiru or have a monster negate with the Requiem, which is very, very useful. We can now link off our Cherubini, and we can now link off our Phantom Knights of Silent Boot to go into our Phantom Knights of Rusty Bardiche. Now make sure with your Rusty Bardiche that these zones are completely clear depending on which side you put it. If you put it on this side, make sure the center and the right are free. If you put it on this side, make sure the left and the center are free, and it will make sense as we go further forward. We can now use Rusty Bardiche's effect to send a Phantom Knights monster from our deck to the grave to then set a Phantom Knight spell directly from the deck, and we're going to set the rank up magic launch. We will now be able to use the Ragged Gloves effect to banish it from the graveyard and then send from deck to grave Phantom Knights Wings. In doing so, before we go much further, we want to make sure we banish the Ancient Cloak to add the Phantom Knights card from our deck to the hand, and the one you're going to want to add is going to be the Stained Greaves. Then you'll activate the Wings, banishing it from the graveyard to bring back your boots. In doing so, you will also be able to trigger the Greaves effect to summon it down. Now you can manipulate its level if you want to. Honestly, you don't want to, because we want to be able to overlay both of these and go into the Shamanite. In doing so, on Xyz Summon, Or, if a trap card we own is banished, we get to target one of our banished trap cards and attach it to this card as material. So you can attach wings if you want to. We're going to attach the Fog Blade. The idea is that by having that back in the graveyard, we're going to have another revival during our opponent's turn. We will now use the Sham Knight's effect to detach all 3 materials. This will then allow us to revive a level 3 monster from our graveyard or banishment, and you want to bring back one of your cards that is going to be used to you once it hits the graveyard again. So we're going to get the Phantom Knights of Ancient Cloak. Now there's another added benefit here of getting access to the Ancient Cloak, and the reason for that one is if this card is in a tap position, you can target a dark monster on your field, change this card to defense, and if you do, that monster gains 800 attack until the end of your opponent's turn. In doing so, we make our Rusty Bardiche that little bit stronger and harder for our opponent to just attack over. Then what you're going to do is you're going to want to link your Scythe, now that it's been used as much as it can be, and your Cloak, and put that into an IP Masquerena. We're not done though, because we're going to actually move to our opponent's turn. Now during our opponent's turn, we have a couple of different options. Option number 1, and you'll be able to resolve both of these options regardless. You can banish the Phantom Knights of Fogblade from the graveyard to early doors summon back one of your Phantom Knight monsters, to then use IP Masquerena to then link into an SP Little Knight, which will ultimately end up being a banish. So that's option number 1. You can actually afford to hold back the Fogblade so that if your opponent does get rid of your Phantom Knights of Rusty Bardiche, you can use this to bring it back, which is still very, very useful. So let's say that we have done that. Let's say we've brought back our Cloak, for example, and then we use IP Masquerena to link off. We now get the SP Little Knight into rotation. But again, we're still not done, because during the main phase, we will activate the Phantom Knight's Rank Up Magic launch. During the main phase, target a Dark Xyz we control that has no materials, to then special summon from our extra deck any Dark Xyz monster that is 1 rank higher. So, we will rank this up into Ophion. And Ophion means that neither player, level 5 or higher monsters cannot be special summoned. So Ritual Light and Darkness, Elf Notes, anything else that kind of needs high level monsters, branded, invoked maybe. And then the best thing about that altogether as well is when we summon this, is that because we summon this to a zone that the Phantom Knights of Rusty Bardiche points to, and it's a Dark Xyz, we get to then target a card on the field and destroy it. So not only do we have a monster in the game, we've provided an additional pop because we summoned here. We cannot special summon level 5 highest, which we don't care about. Maybe our opponent does. And then we have SP Little Knight as well to do another line of protection. So once this comes back to us, we're going to be in a very, very solid state because we still have the graveyard effect of the Ancient Cloak. We have the graveyard effect of the Silent Boot. We're in a fairly decent position and we still have 4 more cards to back this all up. So that's it for the first combo. If you don't want to go into Ophion, you do have the option to go into Nightmare. Maybe they're not on a level 5 or higher style deck, so you want to change it up a little bit more. But it's just a very powerful end field here from 1 card. Yes, it is combo heavy, but remember, 4 more cards to back this up. So that's it for combo number 1. Now I'm going to show you combo number 2. Combo number 2 is going to involve the Solette and the Decayed Cloak. So this is going to show you how you can protect you from the Biru as early as possible. So we're going to special summon down the Solette. This will then, of course, do the exact same thing of Grettin our Umbridge Veil. We'll activate the Umbridge Veil and then overlay both of these into our Gossip Shadow so that we have a direct answer. Now, in the previous combo, this is where your turn would end. You just have 4 cards backing it up. But because we have our normal summon that we never used in combo number 1, we can actually just normal summon down the Decayed Cloak, do the exact same play of grabbing the boots, special summon down the boots, and then link these both off into the Cherubini. We can use Cherubini's effect, send in the Torn Scales, doing pretty much the same thing we've done. We're then going to banish the boots to grab us the Fogblade. We will then be able to summon back the Torn Scales, discarding the Fogblade, and then we will be able to banish the Fogblade to bring back the Decayed Cloak. Remembering as well that we sent the Ancient Cloak from the Torn Scales effect as well, so we've got pretty much everything we need in rotation. We will now overlay both of these into the Malevolent Scythe. Use Malevolent Scythe's effect, detaching, putting the Cloak into the graveyard to summon out the Gloves. We can then use Gloves and Cherubini. We're going to put these both into Bardiche. We can then use Bardiche's effect to send the 1 Phantom Knight that we don't have in our graveyard that we're going to want, being the Doomed Solette, which is actually very, very important later on. And we're going to set our Rank Up Magic launch. Now you might think, that's it. It's still kind of good. No, 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 no. We have so much further we want to go. So we're going to use Gloves effect first. We're going to send the Phantom Knight Wing from deck to grave. And this is pretty much going to set us up with a revival. Make sure that you banish the Ancient Cloak to grab you the Stained Greaves. Then you can use the Wings to revive your Decayed Cloak. In doing so, we can then trigger to summon down our Phantom Knights of Stained Greaves. Overlay both of these here in order to get into the Shamanite. Shamanite will then attach a banished trap card to it as material. Now we still have ways to go. What we need to do is we need to get a Dark Xyz onto the field, and we still need to maintain the Malevolent Scythe. So we'll actually get there very, very shortly, so don't worry. You're then going to utilize the effect of your Shamanite detaching all 3 materials. Now it's very important that the materials in your graveyard are going to be Decayed Cloak and your Doomed Solid, as this is how you're going to make your rank 4 play. So you detach all of those, you bring back the cloak. You can do the exact same play as before, shift this to defense and make your Rusty Bodish that bit stronger. We will now use the Graveyard effect of your Decayed Cloak, which allows you to target an Xyz you control and use its rank as its level for this turn. So we're going to be able to treat the Shamanite as a level 3 for an Xyz summon. We will then use Doom Solet's Graveyard effect to make these both level 4s. You will then overlay both of these and go into your Dark Rebellion Xyz. Now it's very important that it goes to a zone the Rusty Bardiche points to, as we're going to be able to go Chain Link 1, the Malevolent Scythe, Chain Link 2, Rusty Bardiche. Bardiche will destroy the Malevolent Scythe, putting that to the graveyard, while still resolving the Scythe's effect to grab you your Phantom Knight's Rank Up Magic Requiem. So we have this in the hand. We will then be able to trigger off the Malevolent Scythe Destruction effect. We get to add one of our banished Phantom Knights back to the hand. So the cards that we now currently have banished are all of these. So we're going to grab back our Decayed Cloak as a follow-up for the next turn. Still not done because we want to add another layer of interruption. So we're going to activate the Phantom Knight's Rank Up Magic Requiem, which lets us target any Phantom Knights or Xyz Dragon Monster in our grave or banishment. So that means we can bring back the Phantom Knights of Malevolent Scythe. So now we have an Xyz monster that has no materials, and we will be able to rank up our Dark Rebellion Xyz into the Dark Requiem Xyz Dragon. Still not done there, because now during our opponent's turn, as soon as we hit the main phase, we're going to activate the Rank Up Magic Launch, targeting our own Malevolent Scythe, and then ranking that up into Ophion. So we will ultimately end up getting 1 destruction off of the back of the Rusty Bardiche. We still have the Gossip Shadow to manipulate an opponent's effect. We have a Monster Negator here with the Requiem, and then level 5 or higher cannot be special summoned. Now another option, if you want to go instead of the Ophion, is you could actually go and consider cards like the Exo Sister Camellia, which I think is really, really kind of cool because that gives you another line of interaction. But pretty much any dark rank 4 Xyz you can put in the space of the Ophion, depending on the matchup. And like I said, in the build that I've currently got, the most generic option is the Evil Swarm Nightmare, so that does give you a different option instead if you don't want to go to the Ophion because your opponent is not playing level 5 or higher, which when we look at the current meta right now, apart from Cool Tunes, and even with Cool Tunes, it still means that they can get into Trackmaker and they'll have to destroy the Ophion, but it means they can't get into RS, they can't get into Remix, and it can't even get into B2B. So it makes them divert some of their plays. I'm not saying it's the best way to go against Cool Tunes, but it's an option. So that's it for the 2 combos. Now what I'm going to do to show you everything this deck can do is do a randomized test stand so you can see what the deck wants to try and achieve with the rest of its hand as well. So I'm going to be back in a second. So to wrap the video up, I thought I'd do a randomized test stand so you can see exactly what this deck wants to try and do and how you can do it with different opening hands, maybe if you don't see some of the direct cards I showed you in the combo. So after a very decent shuffle and a good old cut, we'll start off with an opening hand of 5 being 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Okay, so going second, not so bad because we've got a Forward Loss and then we've got the Ash Blossom, so that can interrupt with our opponent. We do now have 3 discard fodder off of the back of the Forward Loss. We don't mind using our normal summon for the Cloak. Yes, this is one of the points where our opponent could interact with us the most, and then that's where your Danger Ness is going to have to come into play to help you extend that little bit further forward. So we'll start off with the Decayed Cloak. This will then grab us access to basically an extender, and that's always going to be the boots. So we'll special summon down the boots, and now you have a couple of different options. Yes, we can go straight into wherever it may be, the Scythe. By going into the Malevolent Scythe here, we'll be able to special summon a Phantom Knight monster directly from the deck. Now, we don't get as much advantage off of that because we still kind of want an extension. We still do have the discard of the gloves. So we're still able to kind of push a little bit further forward. It really kind of comes down to what you want. The other option is you go into the Cherubini and then you can start doing your Cherubini line of play. It's entirely up to you. So we'll go into the Malevolent Scythe first. We'll use the effect detaching the Silent Boot and we'll special summon one from the deck. So we'll be able to get access to the Phantom Knights of Doomed Select. Select's effect will still trigger on normal or special, so we'll get direct access to the Umbrage. And then we can activate the Umbrage to summon itself. Now, in this particular type of scenario here, we do have the ability to make a rank 3 if we want to. We've also got the ability to banish the boots from the graveyard, but you want to save that for when you have access to your Phantom Knights of Torn Scales. So because we don't need to use 2 effect monsters, we just need 2 level 3 monsters, we can actually go into the Cherubini here. We can use Cherubini's effect here, which will let us send the Torn Scales from deck to graveyard. Now we can use Boots effect to bring back the Torn Scales. Oh, sorry, not to bring back the Torn Scales. To grab us the trap card first. So grab Wings, or you can grab your Fogblade. Then we can trigger off the Torn Scales to summon itself back to the field. And now we can use Torn Scales effect to send the Wings, to then send another one from deck to the grave. And you're basically wanting to send one that you don't have in your graveyard in rotation. In this scenario, we're going to send the Ancient Cloak. Now, we still need to get the Ragged Gloves from the hand to the graveyard, which isn't going to be that impossible to do. We still have a couple of decent plays here. We can then utilize the Wings effect to banish itself and bring back the Cloak. Then we can use the Sorlet to banish this from the graveyard to make these both level 4s. In some scenarios, you kind of sometimes want to make sure that your Cloak stays in the graveyard, but it's not the biggest issue if you're not, because we can go into the Dark Rebellion. We can trigger off the Scythe. Scythe will grab us the rank up, which will grab, where it may be, the Requiem. We can activate the Requiem. This will then let us bring back one of the 2. Doesn't mean much of a difference here. And in doing so, we can then rank up the Dark Rebellion and go into our Dark Requiem. Scythe's now pretty much done everything it needs to do. The best thing we can do now is destroy it to get us back a bit of resource. That is a possible option. But what we're actually going to do now is we're going to use Boots and the Cherubini. And we're going to work our way into our Rusty Bardiche. We can then use Rusty Bardiche to send the Phantom Knights card from deck to grave. So we'll send the Fogblade. We'll then set, wherever it may be, the rank up magic launch. Now ultimately you could choose to send something different and keep hold of the Fogblade. That really is entirely up to you. Now all we really want to do is try and get 2 more level 3s to the field. Now we can use Fogblade to revive. We still kind of need to get the gloves to the graveyard, which wouldn't be that big of an issue. And in an ideal world, the Cloak is in the graveyard as well. We want to try and work our way to the Shaman Knight at this exact moment in time, because right now this isn't doing anything if these monsters have material, so there's loads of different ways you can do it. I could reveal the Nessie. It's not that big of an issue. Like if I hit the Nessie, great. If I don't hit the Nessie, like the only risk here is that we hit Ash Blossom. Like that's the only card you don't want to hit. So we'll go 1 to 4, 5 and 6 will be a reroll. 5, 3, which will be this one here. It is the Ash Blossom, risk and reward. The other issue with the Nessie is that now the Nessie's on the field, yes, we get to draw a card. There's not really a lot we can do to get rid of it. Like you can very easily go into like an IP Masquerade or an SP Little Knight, which is absolutely fine. So we do it this way. We'll get rid of both of these. We'll go into the IP Masquerade. We can then use the effect of the Fogblade. We'll just double check on this one. Target the Phantom Knights once we're in a graveyard and special summon it. So we'll bring back our Malevolent Scythe. And then we're still kind of in an okay position. It would have been nice to get one of the track cards back into the graveyard, into rotation. But it's not the end of the world. Because what we now have is that during our opponent's turn, we can activate the rank up magic launch, target in this card here, turn it into our Ophion. trigger off the Bardiche to destroy. And then we've got IP Masquerena, which you only really want to link off if the Ophion gets negated or if it gets destroyed. If your opponent tries to force to the battle phase early, that's where your rank up magic would destroy it off the back of the Bardiche. You've got your Requiem, which can obviously negate here as well. Still got the Ash Blossom that will jump onto our opponent as well. Yeah, so you're in an okay position, and then if it gets really threatening, you just got IP. Otherwise, IP can very easily become SP, and you basically just take a step ahead, and you end your field like this, which is still pretty good. And like I've already mentioned, if the Ophion isn't good in the matchup that you're currently playing, you go for the Nightmare, and the Nightmare still gives you the pop off the back of the Bardiche, but also then gives you the Book of Moons and everything else in between. So, and that's pretty much it. So 2 very basic direct combos to show you what you can do. Yes, you can adapt the combos different ways depending on what type of build you go for and how you want to try and pilot it. I like Phantom Knights. I think it's got a lot of versatility. It's got a lot of different options it can utilize. The new cards are just incredible for the deck. I think they really do ramp up its level quite a bit. And as you saw in the first combo that I did, you go through all of the new cards. So it shows that all of the new cards have a place in the build, and it can really, really help you kind of present the field a little bit more effectively as well. Anyway, thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, share. Till next time, as absolutely always, stay safe, and of course, happy dueling.